Hi, guys.
Whoa.
Hello. Okay, so we have people that are here right on time. So if you are joining for our non-toxic webinar, welcome. We're so happy to have you guys with us on your Friday afternoon. If you will let us know there's a question section where you guys can type pretty much anything. Let us know where you are dialed in from. We just love to know where everyone's located. I'm in Austin, Texas. Jennifer, you are
In Philly.
and Rebecca is in
Los Angeles.
LA. Oh, look who's on. Jennifer, our good friend Naomi is on from Orange County.
Yeah, hey Naomi.
Amazing. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do while people are joining, I'm gonna launch this poll. If you guys will just sort of let us know where you are in your journey, really of parenthood, expecting your first baby, expecting your second or third, a new parent, a caregiver, or other. We just love to know where you are in case we need to tailor this discussion to something more specific. Okay, so far it's split, you guys. Expecting a second or third baby, a brand new parent, and other. I'm gonna assume Naomi is the other. Rebecca Naomi is the owner of Little Crown Interiors. She designs the most beautiful nurseries you've ever seen in your entire life.
Aww.
A new parent. Let us know how new, and congratulations to those of you that are expecting. So again, in the question section on the far right, whether you're on your phone or desktop, let us know in the chat where you're dialed in from, and then go ahead and take the poll. We just love to know where everyone is in their life stage and where they're located. All right, so we'll give everyone a couple more minutes to join. I'm just reading the questions. We've got someone from Frederick, Maryland on the line. Thanks for letting us know. Let me see the poll. Okay, so we've still got, oh, now we have someone expecting their first baby too. Congratulations. Okay, I'm going to stop the poll and we will, let me see here. I'm going to close the poll, you guys, and then we can relaunch it towards the end just to get, more people's feedback. Okay, so let's get started. Jennifer and Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you that don't know, I'm Sarah, the founder of Populist, a simplified baby registry platform. And I was talking with Jennifer and Rebecca earlier as we were prepping for this, that there's really only so much we can talk about when it comes to registries. But one of the most fun parts about my job is helping people have access to information that we are all thinking about when we are preparing to become a parent. And one of those is certainly, how do we choose healthier products for our babies? Where do we start? What are we supposed to look for? I remember when I was pregnant with my first, I started to make really small changes immediately. I was like swapping out plastic Tupperware for glass and changing some of my cleaning products and detergent. But then once you start looking at the gear and all the baby products, it's extremely overwhelming. No one really has any idea what to do, where to start. And certainly identifying sources of truth is also challenging. So that is why we decided to have this specific topic on helping parents identify healthier products for their baby. And I have the pleasure of having Rebecca and Jennifer here with us today to really help guide us, because they are the experts in their industry and you guys are gonna just like absolutely love hearing from them. So I'll let you ladies introduce yourself. Rebecca, if you'd like to start.
Sure. I'm Rebecca Fuoco. I am the Director of Science Communications at the Green Science Policy Institute. So I work with scientists who study the chemicals that we're going to talk about in this webinar, and I publicize that information to the news media so that it reaches consumers.
Awesome, thank you. And Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Easton. I'm the founder of Sway. Sway is an online marketplace for non-toxic home goods. So we vet products from probably some of your favorite brands like West Elm, Target, the Citizenry, on the basis of what they're made of and the third-party certifications they've achieved. So the goal is really to just take all the guesswork out of people trying to find healthy crib mattresses, coffee tables, wall paint, anything else they need to make a healthy home. I spent my career working on building standards like the LEED Green Building Standard and the WELL Building Standard as a marketer and a communicator. So a similar background to Rebecca. And I'm just very passionate about bringing this information to consumers so they can create the healthiest home possible for themselves and their children.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm so excited. So the first thing we're going to do, you guys, I just want to make sure everyone's clear that on this webinar, we're going to talk about the products specifically that you are researching and purchasing for your home and for your baby, not products that are specific to the parent. Like, we're not going to talk about detergent, cleaning products. We're not going to talk about, you know, clothes for the mom or dad or anything like that. We're going to really be focusing on the gear and the products to help you make better informed, healthier decisions, like Jennifer and Rebecca said. So we're going to start with just like an overview of the 6 classes of chemicals. So I'm going to share my screen and Rebecca's going to walk us through this so that everyone just has the same baseline understanding of some of the things and language we're going to discuss. So let me share my screen and let me make this a little bit bigger. Does that look okay? Jen, Rebecca?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, cool. So y'all, Rebecca, take it away and I'll drive the slides when you're ready.
So this is, can be an overwhelming topic. There are 80,000 chemicals on the market right now, and you really just we can't sit here for a webinar and go through 80,000 chemicals. But what we can do, that my organization does, the way we approach harmful chemicals and products, is to think about the 6 main classes of chemicals of concern that are common in consumer products. And we'll probably end up talking on this webinar about some chemicals that don't fit into these 6 classes, but this is such a great starting point. And when I was pregnant myself, this is the framework I used. Even if you just focus on these 6 classes of chemicals, you'll be making a really big dent in your family's overall exposure. So the first class is PFAS. These are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. You may have heard them referred to as forever chemicals because they're very persistent chemicals. And the most famous PFAS chemical that you've probably heard of is Teflon, used in nonstick pans, but they're used in a really wide range of consumer products because of their oil, stain, and water repellent properties. And for this webinar, I would really draw your attention to carpets and clothing, baby clothing. Starting off with good news is that carpets made after 2017 are not likely to have PFAS anymore. So this would, if your nursery has older carpet in it, you might consider replacing it. But if you're buying new carpet or you just have hardwood floors, you should be good. And clothing, things like clothing and textile based products that are advertised as being waterproof, stain resistant, stain repellent, those are usually a hint that the product has PFAS. The next category is antimicrobials. So we're talking about chemicals like triclosan and quaternary ammonium compounds, nanosilver. These have become even more common in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, just with antimicrobial producers seeing a market opportunity when people are increasingly germophobic. But a lot of times these chemicals are not any more effective in reducing the spread of bacteria and viruses than just regular soap and water or alcohol-based sanitizer. So for this, for a registry, I would be most concerned about soaps and cleaning products that you might use with your baby. And that would be soaps that, I mean, the first thing you can do is just this hand soaps in your home. Just buy regular soap and water, not ones that are advertised as antibacterial or antimicrobial. Is an easy thing that you can do. I've also noticed that they've been sneaking into like lots of random products like school supplies. So just be wary of something that really markets itself as being antibacterial. It's likely not any health, like safer in terms of germs anyway. The next class is flame retardants. So another piece of great news is that furniture, upholstered furniture, and baby products that are foam based that were made after 2015 don't have flame retardants anymore. So I would be concerned about hand-me-down furniture that was made before 2015, like rockers. I know, like if you had like a sister who had a baby in like 2014, like maybe don't take foam-based furniture or baby products, get new ones. And then so they were eliminated from most furniture and baby products in 2015. But the one baby product that we weren't able to get them out of were car seats. But luckily, the Ecology Center has a report that links to like 13 different flame retardant free car seats. And I'm sure everybody on the webinar will get that link later on.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next class is bisphenols and phthalates. Those are chemicals that usually make plastics stronger or more flexible, but they can also be in personal care products. So for babies, I'd be wary of plastic food containers and bottles and toys. And then personal, like lotions and soaps that have the word fragrance on the ingredients list, that's usually code for phthalates. And then the next class is solvents. So those are chemicals that are used to dissolve or disperse other chemicals. So we're concerned about things like benzene and toluene and xylene, and then some halogenated solvents like methylene chloride. And the big one here for this group is paints. If you're painting your nursery, to steer clear of oil-based paints and opt for water-based paints. Those won't have these solvents of concern. Okay. The next class is certain metals. We're talking about mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and lead. These are naturally occurring elements in the Earth's crust, and most of our exposure comes from the environment, like air pollution and water pollution, things that we don't have that much control over. But I would say that when you're pregnant and breastfeeding, try to stick to low mercury fish. I think a lot of us have seen those lists. The FDA has a list that you can find pretty easily. With arsenic, that would be, again, this is more of a food thing. So just making sure you're not too dependent on rice-based cereals when your baby gets to that age where you're introducing solids. wood-based products, like pressure-treated wood that was made before 2004 sometimes is contaminated with arsenic. So I would, when you're buying wood-based, if you're buying wood-based products that might have been manufactured a long time ago, I'd really lean on third-party certifications, which I think Jennifer will talk about. She's an expert on those. Cadmium, that's something that you find in cheap metal costume jewelry, and babies and toddlers like to put that kind of thing in their mouths, so I would be really careful about that. And then lead is mostly a concern if you are in a home that was made, that was built before 1978, or your plumbing was added before 1986, in which case you would want to go to your state health department's website and find an expert to remediate any lead exposures in your home.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna exit this full screen and stop sharing the slides. I feel like we should take a collective, like, oh. Like, I knew this was gonna be part of the discussion, right? There's so many things that we, in some cases, really need to know and be educated on. So first of all, thank you for walking us through those 6 chemicals. But I'm sure, like many people on the call, they're all like, oh my gosh. So I just want to remind everyone that we'll send the slides out, and any resources that we talk about throughout this whole discussion, you will get post-webinar. And like I mentioned in the chat, please submit your questions as they come up. We will try our best to get them answered in the next, 35 minutes. So this leads us to our next question. Someone's already asked it. Why do we really need to care about this stuff? What's the risk if we don't? And I guess just help the new parents understand why we need to care. I think some of it's obvious, but can you just walk it through us? Can you just help us understand, like in layman's terms, why we need to care?
Totally. And I'm sure Rebecca has a lot to say about this as well. I think there's a duality here that's really important to acknowledge. And Sarah, you've already done a beautiful job of that. This can be really scary stuff. And I think for everybody's mental health, it's important that we learn about it and we apply it to the best of our ability. But I think it's also really important we approach all of this with grace and optimism and empowerment, so that we don't feel so stressed and bogged down, or like we have to micromanage every single thing that our baby encounters. So I do want to just sort of extend that advice. I've seen a lot of parents that I've spoken to or talks I've been on where, there's a lot of fear, like, oh my God, I bought something made from polyester, I threw everything out. And I just want to remind everyone that, the healthiest thing for you and your baby is to be managing your stress and being as helpful and happy and connected as possible. So if this is affecting your mental health in a negative way, have some grace with yourself for sure. But I think in terms of why it matters, I tend to look at this from the perspective of our homes, our interior environment. So we spend 70% of our time at home, which is the majority of our life. So these environments really affect our health a lot. The air we breathe, the quality of our water, the experience we're having. And unfortunately, as Rebecca highlighted, a lot of what we bring into our homes does expose us to chemicals of concern that are linked to known health issues, from asthma to cancer risk to developmental and reproductive harm. So these chemicals can off-gas into the air that we breathe, and that's one of the reasons why indoor air can be 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. I actually had a client that referred to it as the toxic box. I think that's a little scary language. But I think as consumers, we can be really empowered to make better choices when it comes to the products that we will be exposed to and our babies will be exposed to the most. So things like crib mattresses, cribs, wall paint, those are really powerful decisions that even if you just make those 3 decisions, can have a big impact on the health of your home and the health of your child and your mental well-being.
So one of the things that, Jennifer, we've talked about before when you so kindly wrote an article for Poppy List was, if someone's building their baby registry, right, there's no way every single product that we're going to buy or on our registry can be non-toxic. So how can you help a parent conceptualize, and Rebecca too, how should they think about prioritizing those products? And can you just help us understand, like, okay, not every single thing we buy, like I said, can be the best of the best. Also, it is a privilege, right? And it can get expensive to think about buying non-toxic products. But is there a framework you recommend for parents to narrow it down and not make it feel so overwhelming?
Definitely. I think we, in sort of the materials health world, tend to look at it from an exposure perspective. So what products or finishes in your home is your baby most likely to be exposed to? So from a product perspective, I think, you know, the crib mattress is always what I think is at the top of the list. If you're going to invest in one kind of pricier non-toxic product, I think that's the one. Your child is going to be spending a lot of time sleeping on that mattress. And historically, you know, different materials and mattresses have been linked to certain health issues. So I think finding an optimal mattress is, if you do that, you're like a good chunk of the way there. So I think that is the top one to prioritize. I think for nursery environments, if you are going to paint the walls or if you're going to apply wallpaper and glue, definitely making choices there that limit exposure to VOCs. So looking for low VOC paint, no VOC paint, Green Guard Gold certified wallpaper, really looking for kind of the top tier of how you're finishing that room. Those are probably my top two items or pieces you can prioritize from the home front, but I think you can continue drilling down, looking through that exposure lens. You know, I think bottles have already been brought up on this call, but being you know, really thoughtful about the materials that your bottles are made from, whether you choose glass, clear silicone, etc. So yeah, I think you can kind of boil the ocean from there, but I think using exposure as the lens is really the key.
Rebecca, when you were registering for your kids, can you, and I want to preface this, guys, our guests really have to stay unbiased, so they're not going to recommend specific brands. I certainly can, and I'll recommend some in the post-webinar email, but we have to just stay, I don't know what the word is, like, I guess unbiased in a way. But Rebecca, when you were registering for your kids, can you give us like the top products that you spent the most time researching to make sure that they were non-toxic? Like, what was your prioritized list?
Sure. So I would probably start talking about car seats, and part of that is personal bias because I'm one of the people who was working a decade ago to get flame retardants phased out of baby products, and car seats were that one last thing we couldn't get. So when I was pregnant in 2020, there were only about 4 car seats that were flame retardant free. And then I cross-referenced that with our PFAS, my organization's PFAS free list, because sometimes PFAS is added on car seats too, just because they're, you know, waterproof or stain proof, because kids can be messy in them. And so I only had 1 or 2 choices, and they were both pretty expensive. But I just checked today, and now there's at least 13 different car seats that are flame retardant free. That's the Ecology Center's list, and about the same number of PFAS free car seats. So, and they're at the whole range of price points. So I definitely advise putting a car seat on your list by cross-referencing those 2 lists. And then I would agree with crib mattresses and the cribs themselves and the linens that you put on the mattress. And those are something that I would really look for third-party certifications, like and websites like Sway can help you find the ones that are with the best materials that meet high standards, and companies that test their products and their supply chains. Another one would be, so I didn't worry so much about clothing, day-to-day clothing, because babies will wear multiple outfits per day because they're, having diaper blowouts and things like that. There's just not a lot of skin contact, and they grow out of them so fast. Like, there were so many outfits my daughter only wore once just because she was growing so fast at that age. But I was picky about pajamas, because that's something, they wear for, 8 hours at night. So again, I just went with brands that have third-party certifications, that use really healthy materials, like organic cotton, and avoiding polyester and synthetic materials that can more often be contaminated with things. And then the last thing was lotions and soaps and bath products that you often register for. Just really avoiding things that were that had added fragrance is a really good way to reduce your baby's exposure to phthalates.
Amazing.
And just anything that touched food or milk, like bottles and food storage containers, just avoiding plastic. So I registered for glass baby bottles, and you can see even behind me, we get glass jugs of water at our house.
So I have so many follow-up questions in my mind. I'm like trying to make sure I don't forget to ask them. Okay, so there's someone on the line that asked about non-toxic mini cribs, and I know you guys can't give recommendations. I want to just address this super quick because I know a few. For this person that asked, Namesake and Baby Leto, they're under the same umbrella company, which is called $1 Million Baby. They really are the leaders in some non-toxic mini cribs specifically. The Yuzu crib is non-toxic. It has the third-party certifications. So you can look at their product suite of cribs. If you can email me, the askers, it only has initials, but if you can email me, Sarah@populous.com, and let me know you're the one that asked this question, I would love to introduce you to my friend Naomi, who builds nurseries for people all over the country. She would know this answer better than anyone, because I know a lot of her requests are for non-toxic products. So I would love to connect you. So send me an email and I'll make sure you get the information you need. So,
I can weigh in on that one. And to be clear, Rebecca has to be super like neutral when it comes to this stuff. I do not. Just from the perspective of Sway has, we've written product vetting standards for 6 different furniture and furnishings categories. They're informed by organizations like Rebecca's, as well as the Environmental Working Group and the Parsons Healthy Materials Lab. But we very proactively recommend products on our site that meet those requirements. So 2 brands I really love for cribs are, yes, Baby Leto. Sarah's spot on that. They have Green Guard Gold certification, FSC certified wood, and they use low VOC finishes, which we love. And Romina has a really beautiful crib collection. I would say they're probably top tier in terms of, sorry, who's that?
How do you spell it? Romina?
Romina, R-O-M-I-N-A. I don't know if they have a mini crib. I'm looking in our product directory of vetted products, and I see full-size cribs, but hopefully they have a mini crib on their site. But I have been very, very impressed with Romina's product transparency. Everything down to like the glues, the finishes, like all of those components of furniture can include chemicals of concern. So whenever brands are able to disclose that they use low VOC finishes, or even better yet, no VOC finishes, that is such a huge win.
Okay. A few questions that kind of popped up in my brain, and I'm sure others are thinking this. Avoiding plastics, particularly in bottles. A lot of us will choose, and one, we also don't really have an option to send our kids to daycare, and they won't accept glass bottles. So what's the second best option? A silicone made bottle that's BPA free, which honestly, I don't even know what that stands for. I just typically look for that label. What's the second best option for parents if glass isn't going to be available for them or not an option?
So I would say be careful of BPA. BPA-free products have often, they've replaced it with BPS or BPF. That's why we talk about things in terms of classes, just because one specific chemical of a class will often just get replaced with another member of that same class. And BPS and BPF might even be worse than BPA.
Oh my
So
gosh.
sorry for the bad news about that. But I think there are brands that say, you know, no bisphenols, like the whole class.
Okay.
And then even with plastic, if there's plastic, you just have to get something that's made out of plastic. I would just avoid, if you look at the recycling code on plastic products, the numbers 3 and 7 are ones that you should avoid. Those are the ones that are most likely to have bisphenols and phthalates.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard anyone in my life say, look at the recycle code, because that might mean X, Y. My next question, which is sort of rhetorical, is like, how could you possibly replace something that's bad with something that could potentially be worse? Like how, I know, Rebecca, this is like your life's work, but this must be so frustrating for you. Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
But
Okay.
so much progress has been made in the, like, over a decade I've been working on this. It's just so much has been accomplished. So I think I might be more optimistic than the average person concerned about non-toxic chemicals, because we've had a lot of wins.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. So one of the other things that you guys mentioned was waterproof. Can you walk us through like some marketing on baby products that you see that might imply good or healthy? I guess this is not necessarily greenwashing, but like I have a changing pad. It's a very, very popular one. I've never ever considered that the term waterproof equals toxic. We use the Kikuru peanut changer. It's definitely waterproof. It cleans up super easy. I see the water like just bead on the pad. Help us understand some of the marketing language that we need to be aware of when we're researching and purchasing products.
Totally. There's so much here. And again, I feel like Rebecca probably could go on this one for like 35 minutes alone. So I'll just get a quick nugget in. I think that it's helpful for consumers to know that brands can pretty much say anything about their product. Like there are very few regulations on what brands can say about the quality of their product from a sustainability and health perspective. Like a brand could have a very small amount of organic fibers in their sheets and they could market it as their organics line, you know, and so that can be really misleading to consumers. We actually just did an interview with Business of Home on this, where they did a whole piece on kind of like greenwashing in the home and the textile industry. But I think that the antidote to this, knowing that brands can have a lot of leeway to say these kind of things about their products, where maybe the materials or the way the product is made doesn't actually map to the words they're using, like organic or natural or healthy, is reputable third-party certification. So for organic cotton, looking for a certification to the Global Organic Textile Standard. For organic latex, which you'll find in, you could find in a wide array of products, certification to the Global Organic Latex Standard, Green Guard Gold certification, which I know is very popular for different baby products, Oikotex standards, Green Seal. The EPA even has a safer choice label for cleaning products. So there are a lot of really reputable third-party standards that I feel are kind of the best defense that consumers have for really vetting a product's claims pretty quickly.
I'm making sure everyone knows we're going to include the third-party standards, so they don't have to memorize like the Oikotex, like all of these seals, that they'll have them too.
Yeah, and I think the other thing there too is that, Rebecca already mentioned the Green Science Policy Institute has a directory of PFAS-free products. I reference that directory probably once a week, just as we're doing work on Sway or I'm buying things in my personal life. There are so many third-party organizations, that are already doing the work to vet products for consumers. So we'll make sure we send those links around. And certainly if you're looking for anything for your home, that's what we aim to do with Sway, is take the burden off the consumer and enable people to just browse from products that have already been vetted to the highest possible standards.
Amazing. The one thing I want to make sure that we consider, like when we're talking about this discussion, is the nursery is obviously like extremely important. However, I think a lot of us, the newborn isn't usually in the nursery right away. It's in a bassinet or maybe the mini crib in the parents' room. So as you're thinking through your registry and some of the products, don't forget, that's tough, right? Like I've never seen a bassinet specifically that has all of these seals, and then there's the bassinet mattress and those sheets that you choose. So if this is going to be, you know, a priority for you and your family, don't forget about the space where your baby will be initially before you transition him or her to the nursery. But again, you know, this stuff is really, really hard. So we only have 10 minutes left. These webinars always fly by. If you have more questions, please plug them in. What I want to know, and I know some people, they sent me a message on Instagram, is this an all or nothing thing? Can we make really small changes, and do those small changes have any type of impact? Or do we need to like go all in? Or could we just open up our windows once a day to get some fresh air in, and maybe that solves for a little bit of this like toxic box inside of our house? But is this an all or nothing thing? What do you tell people, and what do you believe? What does the science say?
I'm gonna let Rebecca chime in because
Sure. Yeah, it isn't an all or nothing thing, because you can't do it all in, because you can't reduce your exposure to zero for all of these chemicals. All you can do is you can think about it like all these chemicals, there's like, you know, the grams or micrograms or nanograms that your child is exposed to. Every step you take, you're taking down that exposure, and then by lowering the dose of that particular chemical, you're lowering the risks associated with that chemical. Because all of these things we're talking about, these are they're risks. So they're not like poison. Like if you end up finding out one of your products is PFAS based, it's not like, oh my gosh, that's it. The kid's gonna get cancer or liver problems. We're talking about very small risks that just with more exposure to PFAS, you might get into that range where studies have found associations with things, but it's not definite. Just like how even you might know somebody who's smoked, you know, a pack of cigarettes their whole life, and they're one of the people that didn't get lung cancer, because we're talking about risks, right? So like one in however many people will just have the bad luck of developing this associated condition.
that is so incredibly well put, Rebecca. I'm definitely going to borrow that next time I have this conversation with someone. But I also think that Rebecca's words are really important to internalize, because I'm sure all of us are exposed to a lot of content on TikTok, Instagram, blogs, where there are people that take a really strong stance on this, and kind of a fear-based stance. And I think it's very important to consider the science. And again, the dose makes the poison, the levels of exposure change the health outcomes. So I love this idea that you can make incremental changes to reduce risk. And I think too, not everything is linked to, in terms of this continuum of creating a healthy home or a healthy life, you know, there's a continuum of things you can do. Some of them are really pricey. Some of them are totally free. Like Sarah said, actually in you know, green and healthy building, fresh air intake is really important for interior spaces, because often the outdoor air is less polluted than interior air. So even doing free things like, you know, when it's a nice day, throwing your windows open to get air circulation into your home. One thing I tell all of the folks who are having children that I speak to is if you can create a no shoe rule in your home. There's some really compelling studies that have come out that have done by environmental chemists showing that if you keep your shoes on, you can track in cancer-causing toxins from asphalt road residue, lawn chemicals, even lead from soil. So even just that simple act of I'm ditching my shoes at the door or leaving them in an entryway, or even better yet, in the garage, and I know that is extreme for some people, but it's possible. Even those things can reduce your exposure and they cost nothing.
I would add something else that's free and important. A lot of the chemicals we're talking about, one of the main exposure routes is through them accumulating in the dust in your home. You touch things in your home and then you eat. So that's how you're really exposed to a lot of your exposure to things like flame retardants, and PFAS is actually from that exposure route. And for kids who are shorter or crawling, they're closer to the floor where dust accumulates. So that's washing their hands and vacuuming with a HEPA filter, and just reducing your inadvertent ingestion of dust in your home makes a huge difference. Even if you don't change any of the products in your house, if you are just careful to make sure your kid washes their hands before they eat and you vacuum as often as you can with a HEPA vacuum, you will make a big difference.
We recently just switched our air filters in our house too to HEPA ones. So yeah. I feel like even something like that is worth considering if the non-toxic products and gear aren't just going to be an option for your family, because a lot of times they are more expensive. So thank you for those free recommendations. And
also Facebook Marketplace. I've seen so many families get amazing scores of Green Guard Gold certified furniture that was, you know, an $1,100 crib that they got for like $100 bucks. So Facebook Marketplace is a gold mine, and you can set alerts if you have a product you're chasing. I have done it many times. And that's also another little hack for healthier interiors is often vintage furniture or used furniture that's a couple years old, has off-gassed already. Products continue to off-gas often over the life of the product, but you've gotten maybe years of off-gassing out of the way in somebody else's house. So if you pick up something that's a couple years old, it's likely going to off-gas less than a brand new product that's fresh out of the factory.
Awesome. Just quickly, since I most recently built my baby registry a year ago with my second Zoe, I'm not going to get into brand specific, but these were just like, I'll add to your list of products that I researched that I cared about being like non-toxic. In addition to the mattress, the bedding, and the crib itself, any rug that I put in the nursery, or a play mat, or just a regular mat in general. So like Jennifer has so wonderfully suggested, where is my baby going to be spending the most time? Those were like the specific areas and things that I tried my best to research and buy that were safe. The lounger that I put Zoe in, and then of course like a bouncer. I feel like wherever I needed a moment of hands-free time, Zoe was most likely going to be like in a little bouncer or a lounger, and then like the mats that we used in our home and still use today. And then yes, the no shoe rule was like a must in our house. I have a toddler who's in daycare and Zoe who was still crawling, so I can only imagine how disgusting my floors were with a baby that's still crawling and a toddler in public school or a daycare. So anyway, those were just some other products that were important to us. And then of course the skincare lotions, soaps, detergent. So, but yeah, okay. Anything else you guys want to share? I think that's it. We don't have any more questions. I feel like we got through a lot. Also, what's your take on random people on TikTok with low tox? It's still toxic.
Yeah, I just some of this language I think is just not helpful in some ways. Like, I think we all just need to acknowledge and again have grace with the fact that we live in an industrialized society. There are environmental toxins everywhere, and we're all doing our best to reduce our exposure. But, you know, I just, every time I see a product labeled as like toxic, I'm like, you know, and again, to Rebecca's point, I think toxic can be an inflammatory word in the context of we're reducing exposure. Like you're not going to use the pan with PFAS to cook your eggs and fall dead on the floor, most likely. You know, like we're talking about small exposure points. So I think the inflammatory language is a little, I don't know that it helps us very much.
Fair enough. Speaking of, my one knocking on the door. Okay, so shameless plug, not shameless, it's very exciting. We are hosting our second natural nursery giveaway on Monday, which will include a lot of non-toxic products. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. That giveaway launches on Monday. And Jennifer and Rebecca, thank you for your time and wisdom and being willing to share that with us. Like I said earlier, the post-webinar email will go out. Everyone will have access to the recording, resources that we discussed on this session, links to articles. Rebecca will include your slides. So that is coming in the next couple hours. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me. The contact information for Jennifer and Rebecca will also be in that email. So you're welcome to reach out to them directly as well. And I just am so grateful for your guys' time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, take care, you guys. Thank you. Have a great weekend.